Have you ever been fearful to take on somebody else's energy? Are you ever afraid to be around somebody and start to feel down, depressed, or maybe anxious? Are you a light worker that holds a lot of energy work sessions, and are you ever afraid that you can take on somebody's pain, their illness and suffering, and manifest it in your own life? Hi, my name is Andrea Johnson. I'm a Reiki master teacher, energy worker, psychic worker, and I help people expand their consciousness to develop out their psychic abilities in energy work sessions. So welcome to another episode of Conscious Coffee Talks. Welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. Today we are going to be talking about taking on other people's energy in Reiki sessions in particular. So this will be very helpful for light workers who are concerned about taking on their clients' illnesses, or even wondering if every client that they have can even receive Reiki or the energy. So I'm going to talk about two of those big questions that I get asked quite a bit. I'm going to share some insight, some of my experiences with these things to hopefully shed some knowledge and light on the situation and help you guys out. So, can anybody receive Reiki? And the answer is yes and no. So bear with me here. So yes, anybody can receive Reiki. We are all made up of the same energy. We are all interconnected. And so therefore, you as the practitioner can send Reiki to whomever you feel needs it. It's very similar to praying. You can pray for whoever you would like. And it also does not require the individual who is receiving the Reiki to even believe that it's working or to be spiritual or anything of that matter. Mainly, if you're sending them Reiki, it is dependent upon your belief and whether or not you think that they're receiving it or not. I would assume that if you're praying or sending Reiki to somebody, you're going to assume that they're going to receive it. But however, we as the practitioners are not in control of what healing looks like. So it's a form of surrender and releasing of expectations on the practitioner side. We can send it with the highest benevolence and love to the individual, but the way that the energy is going to heal the person is going to be dependent upon the person's higher self, meaning their highest benevolence in the moment, and the energy is that intelligent to know what they're ready to heal and what they're not ready to heal. And I know that sounds very contradictory because you would think that everybody would be ready to heal, right? Especially if you're suffering from pain or illness, things of that nature. You would think that everybody would just want to heal, and truly everybody consciously wants to heal. More so what I'm talking about here is the acceptance of the energy is going to come more from the subconscious. You can consciously want to heal, and it is ultimately up to the person's subconscious and higher self of how healing will be taken in for that person at that particular point in time. It knows what is best for that person and what they can handle in the moment. And sometimes that is no healing at all. I have had sessions before where I've struggled to get the higher self to accept the energy, meaning I feel an energetic barrier between myself and the other person because subconsciously they are afraid to heal because they know it will require change within them, and any kind of change is threatening to the subconscious, to the mind pretty much, because it wants to keep us safe, right? So there is a level of change that is going to have to happen with healing that some people just are not ready for, and subconsciously they know it, but consciously they want something different. So there's a little bit of resistance between the conscious and unconscious mind. So ultimately the energy and the subconscious is in control. It will only give the person what they're ready to heal in the moment. And where I was talking about the energetic barrier is they're afraid of this change, and it takes a little bit for the higher self for them to actually break down that wall, or to trust me, or to trust the energy, or to let go per se, and just be open to the healing for their highest benevolence. Sometimes individuals aren't in a place to do that or to fully let go and receive, and they only receive what they are supposed to in that moment. And whatever happens ultimately was supposed to happen in this session, and that is okay. So sometimes healing won't happen at all. And honestly, if there's no healing to, take place, I don't think that those people would even enter into a Reiki session because it wouldn't be in their reality. What happens with these people is what I call, sometimes our demons serve us. And ultimately, it's a understanding that whatever the person is experiencing and their dis-ease in their life, it's serving them in the moment. For some reason, it is either, I say, teaching them something, they are needing it somehow in their life. So a couple of ways in which this can look like is, one, it's called woundology. And woundology is where they are dependent upon their disease because it brings them some forth of healing almost. And which ways that this can look like is, say somebody has cancer or something like that, and because of this cancer, they then get extra attention that they didn't have in their life. So they really enjoy the extra attention and the love that they get, the care that they get from either the hospital or like the people or the community or whatever. So it's providing them with like a sense of love that they didn't receive before. So it's a contradiction almost, because it helps them heal because they're feeling that love, but also it's further tying them in to identifying themselves with the dis-ease because they're labeling that's the only reason that they're receiving this love. It's kind of like a cycle that feeds itself almost. At that time, it's serving them because it's providing something for them in their life. Like I said, this can sound contradictory, but this is concepts that I've read and it makes sense to me. Now, in other cases, the person can identify so hard with the illness that they label themselves as something, and then therefore it further solidifies it in the body. This is why their external world is telling them like, you have a terminal illness, it's not curable. And so therefore they further manifest that, especially if somebody tells them that, they're going to believe it. It's going to be harder to break that belief and basically manifest a miracle, even though miracles can happen every single day. So those are two ways in which I've found that people can't receive Reiki. Now, I've never tried to give somebody with that situation Reiki. I've had cancer patients before, but they've always been accepting of the energy, because I know the people who step into my Reiki room or are my clients, I know that they're going to accept the energy. Now, there might be a little bit of subconscious beliefs that we have to break down to further the healing, to further the acceptance of it. But ultimately, that's how they were brought into my reality, is because I know that they can accept it. So that's my thought behind it, is the people who can't receive Reiki wouldn't even end up in a reality of where they were in a session. I genuinely believe that if you end up in a session, you were meant to be there for healing, or at least to kickstart it off. I'm more so saying is what prevents people from fully healing is identifying really hard with their illness and the belief that they can't, or the fear of the change. Those things are what's going to tie in that energy into the body even more, the dis-ease or the pain, the illness into the body even more. If you can shift your thoughts and the way that you think about these things, and your basically knowledge of energy in the body, or Western medicine and energy work, combining the two, if you start to actually believe that you can heal and you stop identifying with the dis-ease, then you may be able to actually receive Reiki, or then Reiki would be brought into that person's reality to then start healing, because they're more open to the idea of actually healing this way and seeing an alternative, and that they are actually in control of their own healing and they can assist the body in helping it. So let's go on to the next question, and it is, can I ever take on somebody else's illness? This was actually a legit fear of mine first starting out, because once you learn about the energy, it just makes sense that energy transfer is that real. If you're an empath, then you're very familiar with taking on other people's energies, and it can be a thing, especially like, people who have, you know, severe illnesses, the fear of taking that on is very scary, and probably what prevents people from even wanting to be a light worker or, you know, do energy work in general, for the fear of combining energy fields. On this topic, I will say from experience, I have taken on other people's energy in energy work sessions, but this was from my own doing. It wasn't something that was permanent. As soon as I cleared my own energy, it went away. But I was aware of these things. I was educated on it, and I knew my power and my own vibration. So several thoughts on this. What this can look like in an energy work session is you feeling a little bit different afterwards, and not the energy high or anything like that that you're going to get as a practitioner, but more so of feeling down, of feeling some negative emotions. Maybe you had a conversation with the client, you felt into their energy field, and now it's kind of like stuck in your thoughts, like you're thinking about those things now, or now that say something happened in the client's life and you guys talked about it, and now it's that feeling is still stuck in your field. You're holding on to that conversation, or now thinking about it in your own life. This can happen, and this can be considered like taking on somebody else's energy, but it's not going to stay in your field for very long. And from my experience from this is that those aren't normal thought patterns of yours or normal energies that you typically run in your body. So it's going to take some time for it to actually stick in and become like neuroplasticity, part of your cells, or habits to form around them, and then taking action from that further solidifies the habit in the body or the energy in the body. You would almost already have to have these subconscious beliefs, and that the session just lit them up in you, and it just kind of like I said, lit it up and then kick-started this thought train, right? So usually what I find is if I clear myself, they go away, they never come back, or that I don't really even have to clear myself like intentionally. If I feel this way, it's almost like I walk out of the session and it's like the energy almost just leaves my field, because it's such a foreign thought to me. But there's several reasons of why this happens, and you can prevent it as a practitioner. So one being sympathy versus empathy. So when you're talking with a client and they're telling you, you know, how they're feeling, their story, something came up in the session, and you guys are talking about it, there's a difference between having sympathy for somebody and empathizing with somebody. And where I found where I was taking on people's energy was when I was empathizing with people, meaning I was bringing myself down to, I don't want to say down to their energetic level, but when they're talking about these things and releasing this energy from the body, because when you talk about these things, you're moving energy. I'm feeling the exact same way that they're feeling, and I'm experiencing almost through that other person, through their story, and I start to empathize with them and hold empathy, meaning I'm feeling sorry for the person. I start to feel the same emotions that they feel. It really brings your energy down. And as light workers, we really need to be conscious of this and not hold empathy, but hold sympathy. You can sympathize with somebody and not feel what they feel. So basically, like, you're comforting them and helping them move through the energy, but you're not getting on that level and feeling it with them. That's the difference. Helping them work through it as opposed to being on their level are two totally, completely different things. Being on their level doesn't really help them that much, other than they don't feel as bad about it, because, you know, misery, I say misery loves company, but that's really kind of the concept behind it is somebody else feeling the same way that they do makes them feel better, but it doesn't really move the energy. It just kind of numbs it for a bit. Now, when you help them through the energy and you sympathize and you provide comfort, but you also provide light in the situation, you provide advice that can really help them, but you're doing it in a sympathetic way in which the person can accept it and understand it, and you sympathize with them, they're more accepting of the energy, instead of like telling somebody what they need to do. You know, there's two different ways in which you can help somebody out. You know what I mean here? So that is the difference in my definition of what sympathize and empathize with somebody is, and why when you end up taking on somebody else's energy when you have empathy for them. So the next one is setting healthy boundaries. You're gonna have to draw healthy boundaries, because if you give too much of yourself away, then you're going to be feeling drained. And that's what can happen in a session. If you have a client that extended the session, you're going longer than what you should be, they keep asking the same questions, or even to go like, you know, outside of the session, they, you know, text you daily, or, you know, constantly ask for your assistance for things, that can become draining, and you're giving your energy away. You have to do it out of self-love to draw boundaries. That's another issue, that where you can, I don't want to say take on somebody else's energy, but you can lose your own in it. So the last way that practitioners can drain their energy or take on lower energies, whichever way you want to look at it, is having expectations of the session. And this one is probably one of the hardest ones to get over as a practitioner, because you know the client wants to heal something, or they're there for a reason, and you want that so bad for them, but you can't control the outcome of the session. And you want to help them and for them to have a good experience, that you end up almost like it's a resistance feeling, because it's a lack of surrender, and you're trying to control the outcome instead of allowing the energy to do what it needs to do, because ultimately that's what's going to happen. So it creates almost like this really like stressful, draining resistance feeling. And I can describe it because I've done it so many times. I've had to work through this energy in sessions, because you just want healing for your client so bad. I'm at a point now of, you know, I can recognize when this is happening and I'm putting too much emphasis on myself to, I don't want to say heal the client, because you're not the healer, but to help them out as best as I can, rather than just letting go and understanding that the energy is going to do what it needs to do, and I'm the clear channel for everything to take place. And so intuitively, I'm going to know what it is that I need to know in the moment to give them what they need. Meaning, I'm going to channel the energy in the session physically with the Reiki energy through my body to yours. I'm going to intuitively know what messages that come through for the client to then bring up for their healing in my post sessions, and then I'm going to know how to respond when they bring up issues to further help them. That is all that I can do as the clear channel. All I can be is the light and the love in the session, and just remind them of their power, and kind of just let the words flow through me, the information and the knowledge flow through me. And that person ultimately is going to pick it up through their perception, meaning the energy that they're currently in is going to be the way that they are able to accept the information and view it and understand it. And it will help them in whichever way it needs to in their life. So once you realize these things, and ultimately you can't go wrong, especially if you hold a state of love and gratitude, because that will be the reality that you create, then it's like you just show up and it's effortless. So there are just points in time where I have to remind myself of these things, and a tool that I give my Reiki students is just like a prayer of surrender of when they notice these things that they're either overthinking or they're stressing. I just tell them to take a couple deep breaths, bring your awareness back to your body, and say the prayer of surrender. We also discuss, I have a whole section in my class of how you are not the healer. So I always tell them to remember that. And that is how to shift back into a state of surrender, and then just let the love flow through your body pretty much. So those are some key places of where I've seen, whatever you want to call it, I've called it taking on other people's illnesses or energy of people are scared of doing. But ultimately, it's you allowing that happening. So you don't necessarily like take it on, you know, like you're a victim of it, like it's not in your control, because it all is in your control because you're the one allowing it. And you know, it's not the client's fault either. If they're feeling a certain way, it's on you for taking in that energy, and you can get rid of it just as easily as you took it on from a mindset shift. So kind of demystify it, kind of tell you, yes, you can, but more than likely it's not going to stay in your field like I talked about. You're not familiar with that energy, so your body's gonna probably spin it out pretty quick. Or if you do feel different, you're gonna realize it and then take the initiative to clear your energy however which way that you like to do that. So, but anyways guys, that's all I had on this topic, or these topics. Hopefully it demystified a few things for you, allowed you to see it in a different light. But ultimately, the energy is in control. You are in control of your own energy. All you can be is just light and love for the client, and they'll take in the session, the healing energy of the session, and which way that they were meant to. And if they, you know, can't receive Reiki, they would have never ended up in your reality to begin with. So keep those things in mind. Hopefully that this helped you guys out. And if you're scared to do energy work or scared of taking on, you know, somebody else's energy, hit me up, comment down below. I will demystify it. I will give the power back to your hands if this video just did not for you. So don't let those things scare you from going after, you know, being an energy worker, a light worker, if you really want to. So I'm sending you guys all of my light and all of my love. We'll see ya.